Hello and welcome to A Shock Before Christmas! Yeah, if you're just joining us,
Join us! I get it!
If you're just joining us, Moarte is pissed off that I had to skip the regular Halloween reviews this year, and so has hijacked the Superior holiday to force me to do them now.
Superior holiday? I don't see anyone trick-or-treating along the snowbanks! Except for that one time in the 90s.
Well, admittedly, it might be a bit unfair to call it that, but I love me a time of peace and love and goodwill, and sometimes we really need that when everything has gone to hell.
But Halloween shows that going to hell can be fun! Your heart races from the horror. It's cold, but not too cold like it is in winter. The fear warms your heart, makes you feel alive while celebrating the dead!
Yeah, but I want to feel alive by celebrating a birth! And yeah, I'm a little biased since I'm a Christian, but even if you're secular, it's still supposed to be a time when we get along and don't argue with one another, jackass!
Sure, but you get more neighborly love when my children are going around collecting little treats and goodies in their bags. And with that, you can dance in the streets with the demons. Let all of the monsters inside of you out.
Look, we're not getting anywhere here. You want me to do this? We'll do this.
You're right, you will.
Let's talk Evil Dead, people. For the last 3 years, we spent a lot of time on a story that was dark and at times depressing. The Ring could certainly have its funny bits, but more often than not, it was melancholy, sad, bittersweet, and forcing us to contemplate how we would react to knowing that we were going to die. As such, for this year, we're going with a chainsaw hand instead. We have seen Evil Dead on this show, no doubt, but for the next 3 years, we're dedicating our Halloween episodes to it. Yeah, in December, you get the joke. Point is that this is our franchise, and there are a lot of Evil Dead comics out there, not helped by the constant rights issues regarding this franchise. I remind you that one of the Evil Dead comics we've looked at was from a continuity specifically labeled for Evil Dead 2 because of said rights issues. As a result, with so many comics, crossovers, ongoing series, miniseries, and different continuities, I could spend 10 years covering Evil Dead comics and still not run out of material. But let's go back to 2008 for this one and Dark Horse, who produced several Army of Darkness comics before then. Originally intended for 2005, it took some time to be completed because the creators had commitments to other projects. Although ironically, releasing it in 2008 meant it was released in time for the 30th anniversary of Within the Woods, the short film that served as a proof of concept for Evil Dead. So let's dig into The Evil Dead number 1 to 2 and see how they adapted where this series really started.
Welcome to A Shock the Fourth Wall, where dead comics rise. Linkara's gonna bring you all a Halloween surprise. Monsters from scary stories and adjacent categories. If you step into his laboratory, you won't believe your eyes. Linkara, he is a man punch, or is he something else? Linkara, for the last few days, he hasn't been himself. Linkara, brains, claws, skeletons, and guts. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
The cover's decent, a quasi-realistic painting style featuring Ash in the cabin. I'm fond of the shot of the Deadites below the floor, almost stuffed to the point where they're gonna burst out at any second. Honestly, the only thing I'm kinda iffy on is Ash crouched over like that. It's like he's trying to do that old posture short where he needs to rotate his knees.
Circular motion with the hands and knees.
Until you're incredibly turned on.
We open with narration from Ash reflecting on what's happened to him. I can't believe it's been so long since that first day. Scotty had promised us a remote location. Beautiful scenery. Given that Scotty was a timeshare salesman, we should have seen this con coming. The perfect place to get laid. I mean, that part was true, it just came with all the STDs. And maybe it was, if your girlfriend was deaf, dumb, and blind. Also, if they had lost all feeling in their extremities, or had evolved into an energy-based life form that no longer understood physical stimuli. And you didn't mind seeing her transformed into some shrieking harpy bitch from hell. Although that just happened to be my very specific kink, so I was 100% on board with it. We flash back farther to Ash picking up Scotty for the weekend trip. Good old Scotty. He was one of those old grade school friends who sticks to you like a tick. Also in that he'll somehow give you Lyme disease. Check it out! This brewski's gonna explode! Who you want to drop it on? Cheryl? Linda? So something they really emphasize in this book that isn't really a thing in the original movie is that Scotty is kind of a meathead and a douchey prankster. In the original movie, he wasn't exactly like that. A prank or glib remark here or there, but not, ha ha ha, let's pour beer on our girlfriends, brah. But hey, adaptation, expansion, and changing. And it's not like this franchise is unfamiliar with retcons. There's a reason Is Evil Dead 2 a sequel or remake is a continued topic of discussion today. Ash narrates that while he found Scotty annoying at this point in his life, he does give him credit for introducing him to his girlfriend Linda. She had lips that promised the world and tossed the moon in as a tip, although only 20% of it. After he tells her to give him some sugar, he continues. That's the way I remember her. Soft and beautiful, not the awful thing she'd become. An AI art shill. Joining them on this little excursion are Linda's friends Cheryl and Shelley. I think she met them in junior college or jazzercise. One of those chick things. Lest we forget that Ash is a bit of a douchebag himself. Scotty explains on the trip that they got this particular cabin cheap because of a legend surrounding it. I guess some geezer went nuts in the woods a while back. Local yokels called it cabin fever. I called it a terrible Eli Roth movie. Scotty suggests he tried to get more info out of the rental agent, but got nothing, before admitting he made the whole thing up. In reality, the actual issue comes when Scotty loses control of the wheel and can't veer away from an oncoming truck until the last second. And to make this trip even more fun, they cross a rickety bridge in order to get to the cabin, some of the boards coming loose and falling into the chasm below. The whole damn trip had been a series of near misses. Crazy as it sounds now, I couldn't wait to get to the cabin. I wanted to keep the near misses streak going, see how far I could ride this out. In this panel, the role of Ash Williams will be played by a bunch of mashed potatoes sculpted into something vaguely resembling Bruce Campbell. Looks okay, I guess. Something that cannot be said for his face. And the cabin couldn't wait to get to us, though it would have an even worse time on that bridge. Looking back, I realized they were all around us, in the trees. In the forest. The agent had double booked the cabin. But yeah, these lumps of chewed up gum are the demons, or deadites, partially present in the forest. Join us. Some of our reservations canceled and we have some openings. Later that night, as a Greek friend of mine once said,
I drank what?
The demonic voice, that the five can't seem to hear, calls out to be freed and the cellar trap door swings open to their shock. A very blurry Ash suggests they close it up, that it's probably just some animal, but Scotty, oh my god, what happened to your eye? It's like it fused shut with the rest of your face! Behold the final stage of Youngblood's disease! The complete removal of the eye entirely! Give to the Youngblood's Disease Foundation to put a stop to this horror! Scotty goes down to take a look, but doesn't return for several minutes. Ash goes down after him, annoyed that he always seemed to be pulling pranks like this. And indeed he was. Scotty soon reveals himself and shows off some stuff he found. A shotgun, a tape recorder, and some weird dagger with a skull in the hilt. However, Ash finds something else of great interest. A book. There aren't many people who can look back at one fateful decision and know it changed their lives forever. But beating Scotty to death with that book was the best decision I ever made. No, the decision was to play the tape recording they found. It has been a number of years since I began excavating the ruins of Kandar with a group of my colleagues. I'm starting to think we're never going to find those keys I dropped. Now my wife and I have retreated to a small cabin to continue my research into a volume of ancient Sumerian burial practices and funerary incantations. It's an unconventional honeymoon, I admit, but very romantic. It is titled Nacheron de Monto, roughly translated, Book of the Dead. More literally translated, Nacho Scribblings. The book is bound in human flesh and inked in human blood. The ancient Sumerian self-publishing industry was wild. The book is about demon resurrection rituals and various dark, evil powers and forces, and we see in flashback that the archaeologist's wife attacked him after he began reciting the passages of the book, which is apparently an open invitation for demonic spirits to possess people. There are no established rules in the Evil Dead movies how these spirits possess people and turn them into deadites, but it definitely seems like someone has to be injured in some way first. Maybe exposing blood to air creates some kind of spiritual opening, or maybe when we're in pain we can't focus mentally on resisting the demonic influence. But whatever the case, while the archaeologist fights off his wife in the flashback, Cheryl screams to shut off the tape recorder, seeming to be affected by this. You could imply that maybe she has psychic abilities, bolstered by a scene later, though that could be a demon's fault, and that makes her more sensitive to this kind of thing. But we just got off of 3 years of psychic power shenanigans. We're about demons for a while. What doesn't help is that a tree branch crashes through the window and startles them all. And you just know that means they won't get the deposit back on the cabin, which is the true horror of this situation. After putting Cheryl in her room to relax, Ash and Linda retire so Ash can give her a gift, a small pendant. They must have been watching us, even then. The peeping Tom demon from hell sons of bitches. Judging by the reaction, the evil bastards hadn't been laid in eons. So, this is a bit of a problem we have with this as an adaptation. One we haven't really encountered before when I've covered movie-to-comic adaptations. Retcons. Obviously, his narration wasn't present in the original movie, but what's more, this attitude wasn't present in the original movie. Ash's character changed and developed until we reached Army of Darkness and been defined as a rude snarker. Not overly crass, but definitely a more no-nonsense kind of guy who'd be a bit cruder in his reactions and descriptions. And that's been his character ever since, even in continuities that ignore Army of Darkness. In the original Evil Dead, Ash was just kind of a normal, somewhat sweet guy thrust into a really bad situation. Thus, narration like this just feels kind of weird when put in over bits of the original Evil Dead, where Ash isn't acting like he does later. Maybe it's like this because it's being spoken in hindsight, but it also just feels out of character from the person we see in this story. Cheryl hears something outside and decides to step out to investigate. Always a smart decision in a horror movie. Unfortunately, this shows that the makers of the comic decided to adapt one of the most wince-inducing parts of the original Evil Dead. Cheryl being sexually assaulted by tree branches. It's completely unnecessary. You could edit around it so that the trees just attacked her in general and still cut her up and injured her. It's actually kind of grosser in the adaptation. It was a low-budget horror movie, so they just, had tree branches, and they looked like tree branches. Here, they make it so the branches and vines are more like tentacles, and even have this panel.
Sure, it's phallic. Why wouldn't it be?
So yeah, not showing any more of this than I need to, and we're moving the hell on now. Cheryl manages to get back inside and pleads with Ash to take her out of there. Obviously, with how injured she looks and her current state, he's happy to do so, though the narration seems to imply he was just finding her annoying. Cheryl's hysterics were riving day me utsnay, if you catch my meaning. Yes, your ooshiness day is quite evident, ashhole. However, here's where we really have an adaptation misstep. When they return to the bridge, infamously, the bridge has been destroyed, curved back in the road to look like a giant claw, stopping them from escaping. It's one of the creepier and iconic images of the franchise, but here they just say the bridge is destroyed and we don't actually see it. Cheryl screams that whatever is here is not going to let them leave. My God. Scotty did lure them into a timeshare presentation. They return to the cabin and try to pretend like everything is okay. Ash listening to more of the tape, wherein the archaeologist says that the only way to stop the possessed is via bodily dismemberment, while Linda and Shelley are playing a game where Linda tries to guess what card Shelley has as if she has psychic powers. But it's Cheryl, who has become possessed by a demon, who is able to list them before revealing her possessed features to the group and ending issue 1.
Why have you disturbed us, awakened us from our ancient slumber?
This entire franchise came about because these things just wanted to sleep in on the weekend. Issue 2's cover is okay, showing off what I presume to be a bust of the deadite Cheryl, though with the neat added touch of her hair seeming to be on fire, or at least putting out some kind of glowing wisps. Very cool. Anyway, we continue right where we left off. So Cheryl was floating in midair, growling like a '68 Mustang, muttering something about her ancient slumber, And all I could think was that I was never getting laid. Weren't you just listening to the tape recorder? Were you that horny listening to the archaeologist talking about needing to dismember his wife? Cheryl suddenly collapses onto the ground, seemingly unconscious, and Linda goes in closer to get a better look, but as becomes a recurring thing in these movies, the demon was just playing possum to get someone in close so she could attack. In this case, Cheryl grabs a pencil off the ground and stabs Linda in the ankle with it.
It's gone.
The pencil is just there now, since the comics skipped the bit where Cheryl was influenced by the Force to draw a crude image of the book. Cheryl would never hurt Linda. So whatever was happening, two things were obvious. It was time to hide the rest of the pencils. Not because of this, we just didn't like Cheryl's art. And Cheryl wasn't Cheryl anymore. Pretty sure she's Graham Parrington now. Cheryl knocks Ash into a shelf that falls over on him. She advances to stab him, but Scotty grabs a nearby axe, he had been using it to chop wood earlier, minor bit the comic cut, and hits her with the handle end repeatedly until she falls into the open cellar door. He forces the trap door down and chains it up, putting on a padlock as well. Looking back, the demon went into the cellar without much of a fight. Maybe that was part of their sick plan. Give us a little hope. Let us think there was a chance we'd survive. Like a few boards, a rusty chain, and a $2 padlock could hold back this screaming hell.
Yes, I'll stab one of them with a pencil, then get hit a bunch until I fall in a cellar and they can chain up the way out. What a sick plan!
You magnificent bastard, I read your book!
Yeah, this is another reason why this narration was a bad idea. Sure, you can certainly argue the very thing Ash is here, that the demonic power present should be able to easily bypass all this, but the truth is, it's here for dramatic tension and to be scary. This horrible thing in the cellar that used to be their friend who will gleefully hurt you if it gets out. Instead of letting that fear fester, we've got Ash snarking on it in hindsight and distracting from the atmosphere of terror. And it's not like it adds anything worthwhile, it's just breaking the mood. It's one thing when parts of this franchise have comedy in them, because that's what they're going for. They're horror comedies that can be scary, but also quite a bit goofy. But the original Evil Dead was trying to be a legit scary movie, and suddenly trying to inject that somewhat lighter tone from other entries into it just feels like it's hurting this one's tone. Linda passes out from the blood loss and pain, and they patch her up, putting her to bed in her room. I should have comforted her, told her that I loved her, but I didn't, because I was an asshole. What do you mean, was? We get an interesting addition here. Cheryl in the cellar seeming to speak with the demonic spirits, visualized here by these almost zombie-like forces clawing at her.
They're all so afraid to die, like death is the worst thing this world holds. They don't understand real emptiness.
I do. I've read Marvel.
What it's like to lose your soul, to be released from the prison of morality.
What's with that trilling or repeated R noise? None of the rest of her dialogue does that. Did she suddenly feel like trying out her Tony the Tiger impression? While Cheryl talks to herself, Scotty and Shelley discuss what to do next. Scotty wants to wait until daylight to leave, take the car back over the bridge, but as pointed out, there isn't a bridge anymore. Shelley becomes unnerved by all the noises Cheryl is making, and Scotty encourages her to go to bed. But the force in the woods strikes her when she's alone. So dumbass sends his girlfriend off alone to catch 40 winks.
Oh, good. I was starting to feel like a real dick.
Maybe, deep down, we thought the cabin would protect us against whatever was still outside. We were just forgetting one thing. The cabin belonged to them, and squatters' rights wouldn't kick in for a while. Shelley attacks Scotty. Suddenly, I was grasping at straws, looking for any explanation. Elves! I thought, okay, maybe this was another of Scotty's stupid pranks. Any second now, they'd both break out laughing. Hey Ash, we just put her in a bunch of weird zombie makeup in the 2 seconds your back was turned to imitate the horrible situation we're in now, just so we can pull a gotcha on you! Shelley is shoved back so that her head hits the fire, burning it a bit before she comes back out to once again attack Scotty. Another shelf falls on Ash to incapacitate him. She was gonna kill him. That thing in the cellar wasn't Cheryl anymore, and God help me, this wasn't Shelley. Identity theft, the worst crime the Deadites performed. Or was it? I'd better ask her a question only Shelley would know before she stabs him. Ash suddenly remembers an incident from a few months ago where Shelley put an injured bird out of its misery by stomping it to death. She went ninja on that bird. She dyed its hair blue and said it couldn't stream games with other women. And now she had the same creepy exorcist stare on as she went after Scotty. My favorite part of The Exorcist was when Linda Blair was going around stabbing everyone. Ash thinks about how she and Scotty had a bond, being lovers and all, yet it didn't seem to mean anything to either of them, especially as Scotty is able to stab her in the wrist, which the deadite Shelley proceeds to completely sever with her teeth while laughing. Scotty grabs the discarded knife and stabs her in the neck, yelling, "You're not her! You're not Shelley!" For once, Scotty was right. Shelley wouldn't eat her own hand.
There is logic in what he says.
Scotty looks over the body to see if she's finally dead, but indeed the body grabs at him. He yells at Ash to kill it. Hit Shelley? With an axe? I was the guy who worked a cash register at the local department store. Killing wasn't part of the job description. I mean, I could sell her a rewards card, maybe. Besides, if these really were demons, what the hell could I do about it? Another example of this narration ruining the point. Ash doesn't attack Shelley with the axe in Evil Dead because he's utterly terrified and confused and in shock. He's not thinking about anything. It robs the story of a very human reaction by suggesting he's considering any of this. Scotty grabs the axe from his hands and does the deed himself, chopping Shelley up into several twitching pieces. And so our comic ends with Ash asking an important question. Scott, what are we gonna do? We're gonna bury her outside. I mean, we could bury her in here, but I feel like it'd get moldy. These comics are not great, but of course we're not finished with them yet. Come back next time to the conclusion of the Evil Dead miniseries, and hopefully a conclusion to Halloween and Christmas time. Fat chance of that!
I'm sitting on my couch reviewing comics, the worst words that you will ever see. It's sad that comic books are for geeks, but they're not. They're for everybody. Linkara. If you doubt that I am the man, I am a man.
Hey, Ash, I guessed the card right.
Yeah, truly amazing, Linda.
Hello, my friends. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon, buy merch from the store envy link in the description, or check out the t-shirts available from Teespring. Thanks for watching.